So I think let's get started. It's now 3:50. I think let's get started. I'll kickstart this conversation with a short presentation, and then probably in intervals between my presentation, I'll be allowing for conversation so that we can have a bit of an interactive discussion. But then towards the end, also we'll have a very we'll probably spend a good half hour right at the end just for a discussion and conversation and what could be done next. Based on the conversation that we will be having. For those that are just joining in now, please use the chat section while I'm talking or someone else is talking. Use the chat section to put your questions in, or you have a comment, you have something you want to add, just put it in there. And every so often I'll be policing that, and then we'll raise those questions and those conversations along the way. And again, if you can have your video on, that would be absolutely fantastic. It will really help for a richer meeting and a more interactive one as we go. So you know, this meeting is recorded, and usually the reason we record it is so that we can share it to a wider community and raise this conversation, because like I said before, aim is to raise these conversations and allow for people to learn from it and really make a difference in their lives as it does to ours. Right, now allow me to share my screen for the next couple of minutes as we start this presentation. Right. Now, like I said, the aim of the topic of our conversation today is about overcoming racial inequality, and it goes without saying that there is racial inequality in lots of different areas, and we'll also go through the statistics that we did last time. Actually, let me just share that with you, just for the benefit of those who were not here last time. We shared some of the statistics as highlighted in this slide right here, and you can see there is inequality when it comes to policing. Stop and search rates between 2018 and 2019 shows that blacks are 10 times more likely to be stopped and searched by police than whites. We saw a statistic about housing and ownership of property. It says that white British have home ownership rates nearly double that of Black Caribbean and more than treble that of Black African. And these minorities are instead vastly overrepresented when it comes to private renting and social housing. We also saw a statistic about education, that white British students are more than 3 times as likely to achieve high A-level grades than Black Caribbean students, according to figures from the Department of Education. And also blacks are seeing at least double the unemployment levels when it comes to employment and careers as their white counterparts. That is statistics between 2014 and 2018. And even in health, there is inequality even when it comes to health and health accessibility. People from blacks and ethnic and Asian minority ethnic backgrounds are up to twice as likely to die from COVID-19 than their white counterparts. So we looked at these statistics, and so we had a conversation. We had a conversation around these, and and the aim of our conversation today was more to kind of go more into the practical side of things as to how can we mitigate these inequalities? How can we what is there that we can do as a community, as a people, as individuals, as families to overcome these challenges? You know, when you're coming into a frame and you have to overcome the say education barrier or education inequality. How can we compensate for it? That's the word I was looking for. How can we compensate for these inequalities? Because when you have inequalities, it means that you're kind of disadvantaged. So what can you do different to make sure that you're overcoming that disadvantage so that you can even the playing field to some extent? Now like I said, the objectives first is to dissect the truth about racism and racial inequality, but also to shift the focus from to self, because so many times when we have conversations of race And I think it's very unfortunate, personally, that so many times when we've had when you hear conversation in race, it's always a conversation about what others have done to us, if that makes sense. It's all about what is it that the people have done to our detriment and what those people can do about it, if that makes sense. So it's all about looking at the ruling class and say, oh, you've done this and that and this and that, and it's really bad for us, and this is horrible, and therefore, what is it that you're going to do about it? And as good as that might be, because that's more of an activism approach, as good as that may be, it kind of takes the responsibility away from self. But we have to admit that, yes, there is blame to go different areas and different places, yes, and some of those issues have to be addressed, yes, absolutely. But at the same time, we have to look within ourselves and say, like, right, we find ourselves in this situation. What is it that we can do as a people? What is it that we can do ourselves as individuals? What is it that we can do to make a difference? Okay. So I think it would be really nice if the conversation would go towards that direction, that we should focus away from what has been done to us, or what is being done to us, or what others can do for us as a people, as diasporans, as a race, but rather on what can we do to make a difference? What can we do to change the outlook? What can we do to improve our chances for excellence, for survival, for improvement, for development, for success, and in all walks of life, all areas, whether that be in education, be in employment, be in career, be in housing and property ownership, in politics, you name it, in health, like we've seen, all the inequalities in all those areas. So shifting focus to self is really important. And then, like I said before, we want to look at the practical strategies that can be used to overcome racial inequality. Now, I just want to share with you some strategies that I think might help in overcoming these inequalities, and then I will allow for some discussion there. Now, a guy called Vusi from the choir, South African guy that I really like and I've been following. He's a mentor and a business guru and a great speaker as well. He says every excuse is valid, but it won't give you the results you want. Okay. Now, the reason I love this quote so much, it goes in line with what I've been saying before about shifting the focus to self. That you know, you can have a million excuses. I mean, you can look at yourself and say, my situation is not good, and you can point fingers at everything else except yourself. Okay, you can say, you know, the government did this to me. The economy is not doing so well. You know, the weather isn't so great. You know, my education background was not so good. My parents didn't do this to me. You know, it's because of my skin color. You can have all the excuses. And all those excuses can be very valid. They can really hold water. There can be substance in it. But the truth of the matter is, if we stick to excuses, we're really not going to get the results we want. You know, racism has been around for centuries. You know, racial inequality has been around since man first stepped foot on this planet. You know, and people have always you've always had the ruling class and the rest. You've always had one race dominating over another. It's always been that way. That's just human nature. The fact that we find ourselves as blacks, as ethnic minorities, as Asians, as people from different backgrounds, and we find ourselves in some kind of disadvantage and to deal with. It's not a new thing. It's been around for ages, and therefore sometimes just accepting that as an excuse for not really making the most of our opportunities or failing in life, or not really maximizing our potential. Though that might be true, that somehow race and inequality has played a role in that, using that excuse is not going to give us the results. So we really need to look within ourselves and say, right now, what can we do different make strides to make some changes and improvement in our situations. Now, I want to share with you the 4 E's as my strategies to combat the racial inequality that we face in different places. And these are excellence, examples, effective skills, and expanding culture. I'll go through them one by one, and I'll try and allow time for conversation in between as well. Are we all together? Good, great. Let's go. Now, aim for excellence. Now, this is something I tell my children all the time. I tell my children, don't be average. Now that sounds almost like corny, but the truth of the matter is, let me use this example to make this point. Say you're in a race, okay, and you've got 5 people in that race, but then for whatever reason you have to start that race 10 meters behind the other 4, okay? And, you know, they're doing 100 meters, they have a starting point, but you have to start, say, 10 meters behind that. So in a way, you have to do 110 to finish with them, if that makes sense. And the time for the race starts and everyone is starting to run, okay? Now, if you run at the same speed everybody else is running, you are guaranteed to finish last. Are you with me? Is that true? Does that make sense? If you run at an average speed, say the average speed of a runner is 10 meters per second, and that's what everybody else is running, thereabouts. So if you say, oh, that's the kind of average, if you want to finish in a good place, then do the average. So which is what, 10 meters per second, but you're starting 10 meters behind, and you say, oh, I'll do 10 meters per second like everybody else. What does that leave you? You end up last. Why? Because you started at a disadvantage, and therefore, as a result, you're not going to catch up unless you do more than what everybody else is doing. Okay, so that's why I keep telling my kids that don't be average. Now, the reason I'm telling you not to be average, I tell them not to be average is not because you know, they should not have fun, or they should not do what their friends do, because, you know, kids want to belong, they want to do what everybody does. But the truth of the matter is that because of the racial inequality in education, because of the racial inequality in lots of other places, if you try and do average like what everybody else is doing, you're not going to get the results that everybody else is getting. Why? Because you are starting from a disadvantage position. So your average will be doing 10 meters per second and finishing second, third, fourth. You'll do 10 meters per second like everybody else, but you'll end up finishing last. Why? Because you started behind. So for you to be anywhere near where everybody else is, you have probably to do 12 meters per second, 15 meters per second. You have to run faster, harder to catch up with the group, and probably even to pass it. Why? Because you start from a disadvantaged group. So average is not good enough. So when it comes to minorities, then it's important to stress the importance of doing more, of always doing beyond, over and beyond what everybody else is doing in order to succeed. And is the question you might ask yourself is that, but that's not fair. Of course it's not fair. I'm not here to say that it's a fair thing to do. All I'm saying here is that under the circumstances, if you want to break through, you have to do more. And the question of whether it's fair or not is the question of activism. And it's true, it's conversations to be raised. It's about raising issue of systematic racism, issue of institutional racism. Those things have to be raised, and obviously the government and statutory bodies and power entities of this world have to be challenged in that fashion. But when it comes to internal dialogue, I call it, conversation amongst ourselves, we have to tell ourselves that right now, when it comes to at personal level, if you really want to break through the glass ceiling, as they call it, then we definitely have to do more. If we expect to do exactly the same as everybody else is doing, we're not going to get the same results. Okay? Average effort will bring less than average results, as I've been alluding before. So if you put average effort, expect to get average results under the circumstances because of the inequality, you're going to get less than average results. So definitely you have to do more. But there's something else I want to say about about excellence. This and I call it reverse advantage. And I see this in lots of different places. I don't know if you've ever encountered this, but I've encountered this several times. I get involved with a group of people that I'm meeting for the first time, or maybe I've started a new job. I've worked there for a little while, or I've met a new group. Maybe it's a church group or a community group or whatever it is, with people of all ethnicities, whites, this, that, and the other. And you're there, you do your thing, you do what you do and everything. And a few times, after a couple of weeks, after kind of knowing people, starting to build relationships with people, people would come to me and say, Charles, you're such a great guy. I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not saying that's what they say. I'm not trying to puff myself up there. Oh, Charles, you're such a great guy. This thing you do this is sort of, I did not know this about you. Or someone would say, I've come to know you. You're different. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm different? Oh, you're different from, the way you do your things, you're different. What is not spoken there is what these people are trying to say is that before I knew you, I had this expectation of you. Before I knew you, I had prejudice, and these are the preconceptions I had of people who look like you. Okay? And therefore, because you surpassed those expectations and you did more than what they expected, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I was not expecting this. This isn't what I expect from people that look like you. This is not what I expect from your kind. Basically, that's what they're saying. But obviously, the funny thing about these things about race is that it's unconscious. It's what we call unconscious bias, isn't it? Even the person telling you is not deliberately trying to say that, but because it's so unconscious, that's just how it works. But obviously, we understand what is going on behind, because we know the pathology of racism and how it comes about. And so basically, where does the reverse advantage come in? Now, the reverse advantage comes here in a sense that if we can manage to punch above average, if we can manage to do more than what everybody else is doing, we can get noticed more. Our what we do becomes more apparent because the expectation is different. When someone does what is expected of them, usually people don't notice. If people just do what is expected of them, people don't notice. Because it's like, yeah, that's what people do. You expect this person to do this, and that's what they've done. Who expects that? That's what happens. But when someone does something people don't expect them to do, that's when people start paying attention. Like, oh, this is different. Okay. Now, in this particular case, in a positive way, now, when we do more than average, when we excel in what we do, when we become above average, we become more obvious, we become more apparent, because it's not something that is expected. We almost like stand out of the crowd, if you like, and as a result, we become almost like impossible to miss. And that can work in our advantage as a people. We can use that to our advantage. And that's why usually with minorities, it's an all or nothing game. It's almost like you're below this glass ceiling and it's a struggle and nobody notices you and nothing happens. As soon as you punch above that, everybody notices you. Why? Because you're punching above the average. So aiming for excellence, doing more than average, doing more than what everybody else is doing is very important. And sometimes part of this thing we call the glass ceiling, when we talk about glass ceiling, part of the challenge that we have is this, that we try and do what everybody else is doing, expecting that we will go where everybody else is going. And we end up finding ourselves bouncing off this ceiling. If we excel, if we do more than average, if we do more than what everybody else is doing, I'm not saying that it will crash the glass ceiling overnight, but it goes a long way into addressing some of those barriers, because when we excel more, then we can overcome some of those challenges. Yeah. Now, before I go into the next section on the next E, which is examples, I just want to allow for a bit of a discussion here, and then we can crack on, so that it's not just me talking over you, and then we kind of miss the point of our conversation. So let me step out of sharing. Oops. Stop sharing for a second. How's everybody doing? Right. Okay. I'll allow for a few minutes of discussion, and then we'll crack on with the other E's. Who wants to come in and share their?
Yeah, I think Charles, you are very right. We have to do more than the average to be noticed. Yes, you are. Yeah, very right. Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grace.
Hello, Charles. Yeah, if you notice, I put in the chat. I put in the chat because what I'm learning when it comes down, what I'm I've learned so far, especially being an ethnic minority, is not to settle at all.
I didn't hear the last part. What did you say? Sorry.
What I put it in the chat, I was saying basically don't settle at all for being average and aiming high. I don't know if that's relevant in terms of not settling at all.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for your chat. So basically, don't settle at all for being average. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point I was trying to drive across. That is not aim for average. I mean, if the funny thing is that if you do average, you won't get average, because normally you hear people say that if you do average, you get average results. Now the problem with inequality is that if you do average, you get less than average results.
Yeah.
And that's why I gave you that example of when you're doing a running.
That's it.
So even if you want average results, you still have to do more than average. You know.
So basically, working yourself to the bones.
Well.
No.
Not necessarily. That's okay. Doing more than average, okay, it may include working hard, absolutely. It may mean you working smart. It may mean what we're doing right here, because sometimes raising this conversation and raising awareness and knowing what your challenges are, and really looking to overcome those challenges, because we're all facing different challenges, and it's like yeah, let's say you've got a white student and a black student, both starting A-levels or university or college or whatever it is. The challenges they're facing are very different. And when I'm talking about the challenges, it's not just the challenges in the classroom. I'm talking about the challenges at home. I'm talking about the challenges in their finances. I'm talking about the challenges in when it comes to housing, about family, about, all the way to the classroom, and so on and so on. So basically, when I'm saying that you have to do more than average, it means you have to take all these things into account and really look for ways to overcome those things before you can overcome, or before you can compete with the rest of the group. Sister June had her hand up for quite some time. June, do you want to come in, and then Phoebe will go next. June.
Yeah. Yes, Emeka, I can hear you when you're saying, so you have to work yourself out and what. But I think settling for, excellence. Excellence is a value which I think each one of us ought to have if we want to succeed in life. whether you are Indian, you are American, you are Punjabi, you know, whatever you are. Excellence is a value that we should embrace.
Yes.
And I think for us, especially for us who have come here when we are already grown-ups, there is an average, there is a general expectation, not only from the locals, but even from your own community.
Yes.
It is expected that the very day I arrive here, register with an agency, and then I start doing a particular, you know, certain types of jobs. And before you realize you will live in particular areas, you know, those are average expectations. And I think when we settle for that, we will continue to reap the same results. And I think when we are saying that we should not settle for average, is like think beyond the box. Like I do some working with some young people, and I speak to their parents. I don't have children for myself, but I have learned some of the things that other people of my origin have done to excel. They have thought beyond the box. And that is the something which we are saying, let us not settle for average. Some parents have looked, okay, I have come into a system and I have my own battles to fight, but I will go an extra mile to ensure that this is not happening to my children. So they start to find out which are the best schools. Because if you even study the education system of this country, you will know that there are some areas and there are some schools, those are average. Those are average. And whether an Indian goes to that school, whether a white person goes to that school, the results will be average. I know of a young lady, she's originally from Nigeria, and she was speaking to somebody, say, oh, I'm actually in Oxford. And do you know what some people said? Oh, are you in that Oxford Brookes? She said, no, I'm in Oxford University. And everyone was like, what? But do you know what it took for them to get there? She did not just land there. It is those kind of say you are doing extra. The parents looked, if we want our daughter to go to university, they were thinking of that before she went to secondary school. Those are the things which you are saying, don't settle for average. So we kind of start thinking things well ahead and not just do to, because that is just one example. And I am looking at it, especially for people who have got young children. I have seen a culture in people of Asian backgrounds. What do? They've already kind of sat maybe with their children. They already see like these are our children, maybe properties or finance or pharmacy and what. They're already starting to explore what are the best universities to take these children, and for them to qualify to get to these universities, what are the best grades, and to obtain these grades, what should we do? Those are the things which we are saying, let us kind of come out of average. And yeah, it takes work. And it's like Charles was saying, it's like you're starting a race 5 meters behind everyone. But in a bigger picture, it pays off. And therefore, at least you will have only your own battles to fight, but you are setting a platform for your children not to, to continue that. They might have their own battles to fight when they get at corporate level, and they will know, because by the time they sit in those board meetings, they will look and they will be different, and everyone will be wondering, how did you get there? You know, so it is those kind of things which, when we are talking of excelling and not settling for average, those are the kinds of a few examples of practical actions which we as adults and parents should start thinking, you know, even for our children, while we are also still working our own way to free ourselves.
Thank you so much, Sister June. I'll invite Phoebe and then Emeka, and then if I can see Monica has got a hand up. So I'll invite those three, and then I'll go into the second one. Thank you very much. Phoebe first, Emeka, then Monica. Phoebe, are you there?
Dr. Abby.
Oh, is that Dr. Abby? Okay.
Yeah, that's Dr. Abby.
Okay.
Dr. Abby, I think she didn't hear you.
Oh, she's on mute. That's why. You're on mute, doctor.
Dr. Abby, she can't see, she can't hear. Hello, Dr. Abby. It's you, Dr. Yeah, it's you.
You're muted.
Oh, hey, Cecily is here. Dr. Abby, you are muted. How do we get?
Let me go here. Let me
Oh,
go.
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? There's so much to say here that I just say, why are we all here? Why aren't we back in Africa? 2, why have we left our country where there's problem there? Now we have arrived here. Have we come here as economic refugees? Have we come here as political refugees? Have we come here to better our life because we just want to, we are free people from our country? 2, how do you know about the school system? How do you know about this life here? Some of us don't even know this. We know there are 5 social classes. You come from Africa in social class 2, where you're up, you've got good background. Where do you land up? You landed with some kind of a council house with social class 5, who have got nothing whatsoever from the sort of background where you people are coming from. This is when I hear Obiara talking, it breaks my heart, because Obiara is not just an African who is really grounded, who has got some kind of respect for old people, but here is somebody who probably in class 5, it doesn't even see it as per se. Obiara should probably be looking after some people who have respect for people who are looking after them. Some of them don't see it. Then I come to the other point, sending our children to all these good universities. Believe you me, my son has been to Eton, he's gone to Oxford, and he has even written a book. One of them, his Eton Memo. I wish Eton College Mobile. I wish all of you could read it, because where my son came from, and then he wrote the book with Ian Wright, the life of my son and the life of Ian Wright. You Black people should read it and know the quagmire our children are in. You are so busy earning money to think we can send these children to all these big schools. But by the way, I didn't send my son to Eton. He looked at the television and he saw the school when he was 7 and asked his teacher to go and make him go there. So when he decided to go to Eton, I said, that is your problem. I let him go. I let him get the scholarship. I let him get into Among the Lions. Because if you read that book, it's not nice. My son should have gone to Langley Grammar, where he had got a place, where his sisters and brothers, some of his brothers went, but he went there. Now, when we put our children in all these schools, believe you me, he said one thing, our children need love and education. Now, Black people, I ask you again, you are all talking here. How many of you here are living together? You talk about the Indians, you talk about the Jews, forget it. Because we Black people, we don't even want to live next to each other. Now, Cecily, why aren't you next to me? Grace, why aren't you next to me? Why aren't we together so that we can empower our children in one school, in one community? That's how we grew up in Africa. Because if you do something wrong, and another mother finds you on the street doing, you can clip your ear, you come home, you don't even tell your mom. You know why? Because your mom is going to accept that they did the right thing. Now, if you are going to live in another community where somebody's not even going to correct your child, Black people, let us stop mourning. Let us look at ourselves. Let us question ourselves. I tried asking people to buy houses next to me. The next thing they tell me, Dr. Abe, buy me that house. Listen, wait a minute. I knew these people were even richer than me, but they did not want to live next to me. So Black people, let us stop scratching ourselves. Oh, we Black. Oh, we Black. No, let us question ourselves. Can we do what Michelle Obama's people did when they were living in the Black community? They told Michelle, go to university and come back to us. Michelle could come back. But when our children get education, do you think they can come back to where we are living? Zero. Because first of all, our accommodation is so mediocre in those simple little flats. Which child goes to Oxford University and Cambridge and going to live in that same flat where you grew up? No. Black, let us question ourselves. And then these things will be zero. Go and read what Ian Wright went through. The thing that Ian Wright helped Ian Wright, I think, was the church. The thing that helped my children a little bit were the church too, because they would go to this church and some of these white priests would encourage them. I knew another man who's very high class. He went to the army. He was being bullied. But a white man called him because he was only a black boy. He told me, my patient, listen. He called me and said, listen, sort it out. When you get in trouble, just come and talk to me. Because he was crying, he could not go back to his mom at 16. When he worked in the army for 10 years, he now joined the police force with very, very lucrative protection squad. He said, Dr. Ave, I worked there, and the one who helped me also was a white old gentleman. He said, listen, you're a very good person. Continue doing this, and I'm going to recommend you to get even to a better job. We are going to protect some very important people. Listen, we have to question ourselves and say, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? Stop thinking about LSE, London School. I went to Manchester University. So what? I was in Makerere University. There are some people who went to Bristol University have really done better than those who went to Oxford and Cambridge. Some people just went to some simple universities here, but they are now barristers in London. They have done far more better than those who have got their school names. So we need the love and the community-based generated support of our Black children. We Black people, 20 years ago, I called 20 Black men in my surgery, my patients. These were lawyers, headmasters, people with big jobs. You know what I told them? I said, you know, guys, let us set a kind of a system that we work together so that if you're a lawyer and my daughter, my son or a daughter, I'm a doctor, want to go in the law firm or want to come some kind of attachment or help, he can go to you. Do you know they listen carefully? The next month, only 10 people came back. The last month, only my brother came back, the lawyer, the others all gone, they disappeared. Then again, I called 30 women. Some of you people know, Grace, you people know, when I called those 30 women, I said, let's start putting 50 pounds a month, each of us, and see what we can do with ourselves and the Black community. You know, at the end of the day, everybody disappeared. Now, you let's ask ourselves, who do you think should organize us? Stop talking about you being discriminated and things. Well, I feel sorry for Obiora because I think you've just come to this country as an older person. Believe you me, the Black people who have been in this country have not secured a community-based help support. That's why you find yourself in this quagmire. If you had Black people who had formed a nice, good community-based support, you would not be working at home. You would be working somewhere where we have worked it out that when you go there, you have support. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Wow.
Ave. That is a wonderful contribution.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. And I think it links so well with the second point that we're going to be talking about, the point of examples. But we'll get to that in due time. Let me allow Emeka and then Monica, and then we'll crack on. Emeka.
Yeah, I heard everything. I heard everything she said, Miss Phoebe. And one thing I've come to realize is, apart from not settling for less, I feel a lot of it has to do with your self-esteem as a person. When you know when you believe in yourself, when you believe in yourself more, that's where you start to realize that you won't settle for less. Because I would know, because for me, like I'll say to a certain degree, it's a long journey for me. And I've struggled a lot in terms of knowing my worth and what I'm capable of doing. It's just recently I'm trying to build this to it. Of course, there have been barriers. It's not easy. But hearing what she said, I understand where she's coming from. Like the job I'm doing, obviously, I'm just doing it to support myself. But I know there are so many things I aspire, I want to do. It hasn't been easy, but I'm just trying to think positive. So I just feel basically the point I want to say is all about worth, knowing your worth as a person.
Charles, can I come in before you continue? That's Cicely.
Yeah, yes, it's okay if you wait for Monica first and then you'll come in, Cicely.
Okay.
Just a second. Monica, you had your hand up for quite some time.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm not far from other people who contributed. I just wanted to emphasize on believing in ourselves and connect to the right people who aim higher and who speak positive, because the reason being we learn from one another. So if my group will be the people who speak negative, which means even if I plan to do something bigger than what I expect, the person will pull me down because he doesn't believe or she doesn't believe that we can do higher than what we expect or than other people they expect. So we believe in ourselves. And 3, we shouldn't speak or tell our weakness to anyone. You know why? It will be used as a weapon to fail you or to fail me. For example, I take this example when I took my friend to DVLA for the test. Once she saw in the car, there were 2 people nowadays. One is the controller, whatever it is, and the other one is examiner, is marking whatever you are doing. The person was really sweating before entering in the car, refusing, saying, I cannot go in the car while there are 2 people. I tried to beg those people to say, okay, my friend wants only 1 person. They said, no, the law has changed. We need to be 2 people in the car in order to be like witness for one another, for the person who will be marking, and the marking must be corresponding to the other person as a witness. So by law, we have to do this. So the person had already lost the confidence because she knew that if I enter in the car, I'm going to fail. And it came exactly, her mind was not transformed. She became on failing until now, because she's not believing herself. She forgets that she's paying the money to do her plans or to meet her plans. So we should believe ourselves. We should connect to the people who aim higher so that we learn also from them. Through them, we can move together because we are aiming higher together. And also, as I said, we shouldn't be speaking our weakness. It will be taken as a weapon for our failure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. Cecily.
Yeah, okay. It's a very, very simple follow-up on what Dr. Amber said. And also because I earned June's comments there, which I have heard a lot in our communities. I'm really wanting to tailor our children to the very best, establishments so that they can do better than us. Now, hearing Dr. Amber's comments and knowing you, Dr. Amber, and the passion you have for the communities, and also knowing how you came into this country and all that very good background and what have you. Just out of interest, what was your intention for your children, or what did you wish them for, and what helped them in that journey, despite the fact that you still left them to make the decisions for themselves, to follow their passion? So what is it that you did differently from what you observe, and especially based on the that feedback you have given there, the need to work together as communities and have our own establishments? Not sure whether that makes sense. You're still muted, Dr. Amber.
Are you asking a question?
Yes, I am. So what is
Cecily, I, as a GP, you know, my husband was a doctor as well. So to make him really excel to his best, I registered and I stayed at home for 5 years. I didn't work as a doctor, bring up my family. My husband became a consultant surgeon. So everything in the house I did, I cook, I carry children on my back, just like an African woman. I taught them when they were little. This young man now talking, that is one of the best writers international. He was reading at the age of 1 because I would teach them when they sit together with each other. We had friends and neighbors, don't get me wrong. We were not in a very posh place where we had a comfortable house. We didn't go for very expensive places. When my husband died, they continue to enjoy doing what they were doing because they just like to read and compete. They would go, you know, they say, Musa said one thing, give the children love and education. They went to local library. And you know what they used to do? They used to go to the library and look up competition in writing. There was can you imagine 20 years ago, one of my daughters won a prize in writing. She got £500 with W.H. Smith. They got it themselves. I didn't even know they had got it. They went and got the prize. One got a prize for £250, mister. We went all the way down in the coast to get the prize. I didn't even know they had done it, but they had that passion to do things for themselves. So Black people, let us, because you know, we are all talking, be confident in yourself. Do you know what? If you don't have that confidence in the home, you know, some of you are talking like this because back in Africa, you are groomed. You are taken to church nearly every Sunday. You see your grandfather, you see your grandmother, hey. You see all your mom's neighbors. You can't afford to be silly and do good things, but sometimes you can be naughty, don't get me wrong. But the sort of confidence we people have, we who came from Africa, is different from the sort of confidence these children are going to have. You people say you should be confident with yourself. How are you going to get the confidence when you don't have it in the community? How is a child going to be confident? And the way you're talking, do you think our children are going to talk like us? Are they going to be vivacious and so confident? Cecily, do you think your daughters are going to, I see them quiet, well-behaved, very nice, but they don't have that kind of gist that you had back home. Because back home, we were seasoned. By the time we came here, we were seasoned. We didn't. I went to a boarding school, one of the posh boarding schools. They know, people know Guy as a high school. I was in Bulo High School, but by that time, I had learned, if you read my books, everything you see in my books, my Acholi book, my English book, I got it before I was 12. All my songs on the YouTube, believe you me, I know them in my head, verse by verse. I learned them before I was 12. I didn't learn them at Gayaza High School. Gayaza High School just went to shape me. Just went to shape me to be the girl who should be a wife, who should be a doctor, who should be a mother. Gayaza shaped me from the age of 12 until I went to, by the time I went to Makerere University, by the time I came here too, remember, I came as a refugee with nothing. But because we were taught in Africa how to wash up, how to clean, I was in YWCA, so I used to go in the church. And after service, I would wash up, clean up, go in the kitchen, put out the cups and the plates. But that's how we were taught in Africa. Then this gentleman, Mr. Maribaka, Dr. Maribaka, he came and said, I've been watching you for the last 3 weeks. You don't look like other girls in this country. What are you doing here? I said I was in Makerere University. I ran away from Idiom, from the political problem. And now at home, do you know, he said, I give grants to all the students from Africa who want to do medicine and dentistry. Come to my office tomorrow. I'll give you to go and finish your degree. Do you want to go to Oxford or Cambridge? I didn't ask for it. I said, no, I don't want Oxford and Cambridge because I've already been to Sheffield and I've already been to Manchester. I've got a place. They said, come. You know, I arrived on the 10th of October. I was in the medical school on the 4th of December. but it's because we were groomed back home, my friends. So how are we grooming up our kids here? Do you know, I tried, because Cecily, you asked that, my children, as old as they are, whether they've been to Eton, whatever, or Oxford, whatever, or the university and graduates, they can cook. They can do the washing and do the laundry here. The other time, my son came from Berlin to go for it because he's promoting all the books. He's reading 3 books in a year. He said, Mom, I want to go and put my wash up in the washing machine, in the washroom. I said, no, I'll do it. So I went and did it for him. I lined it all up. He came and said, next week when I'm here, I'm going to do your laundry. I mean, what child can say, I'm going to do their laundry, okay? When we finish cooking, you never waste food. The other time he said, Mommy, don't you have cling film and foil? Because whenever there's food, he's always checking whether you put it away. They say poor people don't waste food, but it's how we try. Let us try what we did back home. We do it here. Mothers, stop chasing jobs and working 24/7 when these children are young. Give them that grounding for the first 12 years. Is like laying a foundation of a house. Mothers, if you can, and fathers, if you can, get the little money you have. Support your wife and the children so that the wife stays at home. These childminders, we tried. This babysitter, we tried. We even had a nanny. You know what that nanny did? We had 2 cars when we were both doctors. She would drive away with the children in the morning as soon as we go to work, except one day when one of the children opened the car door in the motorway and they nearly had an accident. That's how we found out. From that time, I decided I'm going to stay at home and bring up my children. So for 5 years, I stayed at home. But I think mothers, we should look at ourselves and say, what foundation are we laying for these children before they are 12? Are we going to keep chasing? Some mothers are so busy on the phone, even when they come to my surgery, believe you me, I'm talking to the children. The mother are texting somebody to pick up the children. They're only there for 10 minutes in my surgery. They already texting. So I said, what are you using your phone for? Oh, I want somebody to go and pick up the shopping for me. Can you imagine? We have got no clue whatsoever how to stay at home and look after our children. After 12 years, 14 years, they can start going in the bus. But mothers, particularly, and the fathers, stop running away and leaving these women with the children, because the childminder is another thing. Yeah. I'm not saying they're very good, but
sorry,
we have to focus.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abi. I like where this conversation is going, because we're focusing more now on the next generation as well, and how we can actually bring them to excellence. Because from the beginning, we've been talking about the first E, the excellence. How the question is, how do we excel in spite of the challenges that we're facing? And I love the way Dr. Abi had said at the very beginning, if you heard her, when she said, let's stop focusing on what's happening out there. Let's look within ourselves. What is it that we need to do different? And that's where the conversation has been, and which is absolutely fantastic. Please allow me, for the sake of time, allow me to go through the other E's, and then we'll have a discussion generally for all of them, including the excellence one, but the other strategies as well. And then we'll see where we get to. Allow me to share this really quickly, guys, again. Where were we? Right, that was excellence that I just talked about. The next one the next E I wanted us to talk about is examples. Now, what do I mean by examples? Every community has a role model. Okay. Every community has a role model, and by role models, I mean people that you can look up to and say that if they could make it, if they could do that, I can do that. Okay. Now, you look at all communities around the world. You know, I've put a great well, mixture of pictures there with different people from minority backgrounds who have kind of pioneered in whatever area or have excelled in whatever field. they were in. You have flight pilots there, you have politicians, you have activists, you have sports people, you've got great personalities, you've got writers, sports people, and all sorts of people, musicians, and all kinds of people. Now, what I'm trying to point here is that role models expand the realm of possibilities. I'll use a simple example that when a child looks around, again, speaking of the next generation, when a child looks around, they look around, they're trying to see what they can be, where do they fit in, what is their potential, if you like. Usually we say that, oh, you can look at your potential within, but the truth of the matter is, it's very difficult for a person to search himself inside. It's something we talk about a lot, that you need to search yourself, you need to find your potential and do this. But truth of the matter is, as humans, we tend to look outwards to the people around us to find what is the realm of possibility, what can be done, okay? I love the example of Roger Bannister, the guy who first ran the 4-minute mile, because in the past they used to believe that you cannot run a mile for less than 4 minutes, and that was almost like written in stone until Roger Bannister in 1958, I believe. Sir Roger Bannister ran it for, I think, for 3 minutes and 58 seconds or something like that. And then the funny thing is, it's never been done before, but as soon as Roger Bannister did it, within 12 months of him doing that, more than 200 people did it as well. Why is that? It's because all of a sudden, people started believing that, oh, if that young college guy, I think he was a medical student at the time, if this young college guy can do it, then surely we pros can do it as well. So all of a sudden, the realms of possibility as far as running a mile were concerned changed overnight, because they saw someone who looked like them, someone who was pretty much by all for all intents and purposes similar to them in terms of athletic abilities, that is. If he could do it, then why couldn't we? So it is the same with role models. When kids look up to people, not just kids, even adults, when they look around, they're looking for people that look like them, people who are sharing their traits, sharing their experiences even, and see what sort of success they have, what they have achieved, and that becomes almost like a template for what seems possible to them. So I think this is another area that is really important, and it's important for the ethnic minorities to highlight and make it as really important. That pioneering things is really hard. When you try to, I keep going back to the glass ceiling thing. The first person, you can say that, oh, there's never been a manager who's black in this firm, for instance. And that has been a problem for so many years. But usually what tends to happen is you just need to have that first manager there, and then all of a sudden it gets easier to have a black manager again. Why? Why has it suddenly become easier? Is it that glass ceiling shattered and then all of a sudden things have become easier? No, it's because all of a sudden the realms of possibility have changed. People who are subordinates, who are aspiring to be managers from ethnic minority groups would look up and say, oh, if he could do it, I can do it. And all of a sudden, the effort changes, the belief that Monica was talking about before changes, the confidence changes, and therefore examples are really, really important. So when I'm talking about examples, what we're referring to, we have people that have made it in lots of different sectors from ethnic minorities in our communities. People who have excelled in areas of medicine, people who have excelled in different professions. Dr. Adi was talking about teachers and lawyers and people who are in different fields that he called upon many years back. So we have people in all those sectors that have done so well. The question is, how can we utilize that people? How can we make them almost like the focus of our communities? I always point out an example of a certain tribe in Tanzania. I come from Tanzania, and there is a tribe, and I'm sure that maybe there are a few people here who are coming from that tribe. I think Jindas, they're called the Haya from Kagera. The thing I like about that tribe is in their communities, they have community leaders. What they tend to do, they will give the most successful, the most prominent, the people that have done the best in the community and in society as leaders of their communities. So basically, they put those who are very successful at the forefront of their communities so that everybody else looks up to them. And as a result, the aspirations among the community, aspirations among the youngsters in that community are so huge, because every time they look up, they see success. Every time they look around, the people that inspire them, the people that lead them, the people that demand of the people that are pushing them forward are successful themselves. And as a result, the bar has been raised from in the societal perspective. Now, when it comes to diasporans, unfortunately, I'm saying unfortunately, it's that there is a bit of a disjointment, if you like. There is a bit of lack of organization in such a manner that you have lots of successful people who are coming from ethnic minority backgrounds, and let me speak specifically in Black terms, because you have other areas like the Indians and others that have kind of done well in that area. But you'd have lots of successful people from ethnic minorities, from Blacks in particular, but they will be almost like in the fringes of the community, not at the center of the Black community. And as a result, the community is not benefiting from those role models. It's not benefiting from the success of their compatriots, if you like. So you'd have great doctors, you'd have lawyers, you'd have engineers, you'd have all these people. But then the question you ask is, what do our children see? You know, do our children look up and when they look when they think of doctors, what do they think? Do they think of Black people when they think of doctors? When they think of pilots, do they think of Black people? Do they see Black pilots out there? Do they see Black doctors out there? Do they see Black engineers out there? I don't know what the aspirations of our children are, but if they cannot see people that look like them in those areas, it's very difficult for them to see themselves in those positions. And I think it's very important as communities to find ways where we can bring these people into the forefront of our community, so that they can be role models for our children, role models for us even, so that we can aspire more as a community. Because we have these people, there are so many, I mean, if you start counting African doctors, not just Black African doctors in the UK, there are so many of them scattered throughout the UK, right? But how many Black doctors do my children know? Probably just one, if at all. You understand? So if my child aspires to be a doctor, how many examples does he or she has? You know, it's different, because back home where I grew up, you know, if I look around, if I want to be a doctor, there are lots of Black doctors everywhere. If I want to be a pilot, there are lots of pilots. If I want to be a president even, my president in Tanzania is Black. And that's not a surprise, is it? But then, therefore, I can aspire to be anything I want, because I have examples all around me. Problem is, we've come to this country, and all of a sudden, you don't have those examples anymore. When you think of all these things, you see people that don't look like you, and therefore you miss the inspiration. So I think examples are really important, and I think we can have a conversation around that. How can we make that work under our circumstances? Again, communities that celebrate their role models are much more likely to prosper. And I think it's very important that we need to celebrate our role models, people that do well. I think the reason why you have almost like over-representation in terms of success, you have over-representation of ethnic minorities, especially Blacks, in sports and entertainment, is because there are so many examples. You know, a child grows up, looks up, you know, at the top 100 chart billboard of musicians. You have lots of Black people there, so he thinks, oh, I can be a musician as well. You know what I mean? But if you go into the music industry, you realize even in that industry, there is so much inequality, there is so much racism, there is so many difficulties, but they still make it. Why? Because there are so many examples. You go into sports, same thing. You look around, you've got Marcus Rashford, you've got this, that, and the other, you've got him, that. Lots of Black people excelling. So kids look up to them and think, I can make it as well. Is there no racism in sport? There is so much racism in sport. There is so much inequality, but they still make it. Why? Because of the examples that they can see. So I think examples is really important, and as a community, we really need to celebrate them. Now, very quickly, let me talk a little bit about effective skills, and the last one, which is expanding culture, and then I'll allow for conversation around all of these together. Now, with effective skills, I want to talk about the difference between hard skills and soft skills. Now, I've heard it so many times, people saying things like, I've been working for this company for these many years. I'm very qualified. I have all these qualifications, but I'm always overlooked for promotion. you know, I'm being racially segregated, or I'm looking for a more appropriate word. What's that word again? It's gone. It'll come back to me later. But you know, I've had the qualification, or you have someone who's not as qualified as I am, has not worked in this company for as many years as I have, but that person got promoted to a managerial position and I haven't. You know, and more often than not, we point towards the race card, that the reason I've not been promoted is because I'm Black. Okay, now that may be true to some extent. It depends on specific circumstances. It may be the case, but there is something else I want us to focus on when it comes to effective skills. That so many times we put too much emphasis on hard skills. What do I mean by hard skills? Hard skills are things like, I've got a degree, you know, I'm a doctor, I've got a degree, I went to medical school for 5 years or 6 years or whatever it is. Or yes, I've got a master's degree in economics, so I'm an economist, you know, this is what I have, you know, I've done this, that, I've got papers. Hard skills are those things almost that you can show using papers. You know, someone doesn't need to see you, someone just needs to see your CV and how big your CV is, and you can tell someone's hard skills. Now, most of the diasporans and especially Africans, we are loaded with hard skills. We have our degrees, we have, you know, our master's degrees, we have our PhDs even, but we don't talk a lot about soft skills. Now, what do I mean by soft skills? When it comes to soft skills, I'm talking about things like communication. I'm talking about things like attitude. I'm talking about things like leadership skills. That's just an example, but there are lots of other areas, areas of management skills, creativity. But I just want to focus on these 3 areas: communication, attitude, and leadership, as an example. And you realize when it comes to management, when it comes to promotion, sometimes it is not all about hard skills. It's not all about qualifications. It's not all about experience and how many years you've put into a certain organization. Sometimes it comes down to the soft skills. Communication, for instance. How well will you be able to communicate with your team? How well will your team be able to listen to you? How well can you get your point across? You know, how you know, your body language, your listening skills. How much will people be willing to listen to you? How much can you command attention of people? You understand? And that comes down to communication skills, which is a soft skill. You know, you might not see that in someone's CV, but you only need to sit with someone for 5 minutes and figure that out. Okay? When it comes to attitude, it's about passion. You know, you find someone who has been working in a certain area, and I see this in a lot of my fellow Africans as well. You know, we sometimes, again, maybe it's because we feel that we are overqualified, and more often than not, we are overqualified for most of the jobs that we do. We tend to lose passion with what we do. So what tends to happen is someone is just doing a certain job, whatever that job is, and the kind of thing like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, you know, I'm more qualified than this, and therefore as a result they're not putting 100% into that work, and then as a result they come across as not passionate, as if they're just there for the salary, if you like, and therefore though they may be more qualified than the others, but then when it comes to promotion and other things, people look at that person and think, this person is not passionate about the work. This person is not decisive with what they do. This person is only giving a bare minimum all the time, and as a result, we don't excel, if you like, in our careers, in our areas, because our attitude says something different to what our qualification doesn't back up our hard skills, if I put it that way. In the third area of leadership, again, it's the same thing. This is my definition of leadership. Leadership is taking responsibility beyond yourself. Okay? If you can take your own responsibility, that's really good. But if you can take responsibility beyond yourself, you are a leader. You know what I mean? A football team performs really badly. Who do they sack? They sack the manager. Why? Because he's the leader. He is taking responsibility for not just his faults, but for the faults of the whole team. Okay, that's what leadership is, taking responsibility beyond self. Now, we need to ask ourselves, do we take responsibility beyond ourselves? Do we take responsibility beyond ourselves in our places of work? Do we take responsibility beyond ourselves in our communities? The reason we find ourselves in the fringes of our communities so many times is because we usually come into this country almost like, like what Dr. Abi was pointing out earlier. We come in maybe for economic reasons, maybe for whatever, maybe refugee reasons, maybe for safety, whatever it is. But when we come here, we don't integrate into community. We don't make the community problems our problems. You understand? We live in neighborhoods where there is so much crime. We live in neighborhoods, maybe they have drug problems, for instance. Maybe we live in a neighborhood where there is problem in the school. The local school has problems. Okay? How much do we get ourselves involved in that? How much do we look at those things and say, this is my problem. This is something I need to do something about. That is leadership. And if we want our community to, if we want to rise above the average, if we want to be different, then we need to start looking at these things and say, hang on a second. I don't want to see drug dealers outside my house selling drugs. I need to do something about this. Start engaging the police, start engaging your neighbors, start, doing this, take that responsibility. And that's what leadership is, taking responsibility beyond this. I'm not just saying like, oh, I'm doing my shifts, I'm going to work, I'm coming back home, I get my money, I don't care, I send money back home, I don't care what happens on the streets outside. Because if we have that sort of attitude to ourselves, to our communities, to our places of work, everywhere else, we'll always be average, we'll always be mediocre, we'll always not come into the integration, won't come into the table because we're bringing nothing to the table. Let me put it that way. I'm trying to put it frank, and I'm trying to be blunt in that sense. But I think leadership is very important, and these are the soft skills that we need and things that we need to be talking about, that we need to develop as a community, we need to develop as individuals, we need to develop as a people. And therefore, if we could have these skills on top of our already laden hard skills, the degrees and the papers and everything that we have, I'm telling you, we'll be unstoppable. So I think effective skills is really important, and we'll go a great length into overcoming some of these barriers that we see, if we can learn to build the soft skills to go with the hard skills that we already have. But a good point to note here is that there's a bit of a cultural element to developing soft skills, and it's very important to understand that. I remember a while back, I think it's in one of these meetings or somewhere else, I can't remember, Emeka shared his story when he came into this country. And he said when he went for his first job interview, he was finding it really difficult to get a job because where he came from, when you're talking to people, when you look at them in the face, is a show of arrogance, and a show of respect is to not look at people's faces. And so when you're talking to people, you're looking down to show respect. But when you come to this country, it's completely different. If you go to an interview and you've got the panel there asking questions and you're looking down, they think, oh, this person is not comfortable. This person is not comfortable in their own skin. This person doesn't know what he's talking about. This person doesn't want to be here. Probably should not give a job to this person. You see, so sometimes there is a bit of a cultural element to that, and it's important to understand and learn even what works in different cultures and different settings, because if we don't, then we almost like become victims of our own ignorance, if you like. Ignorance in the sense that we haven't tried to look at where the problem is and try to solve it as it is. Last point on expanding cultures, and then we'll have a bit of discussion, which goes hand in hand with what I just pointed at the last slide about the cultural element to things. We come from Africa, a completely different culture. Things work differently. Expectations are different. Interpretations of things are different. Now, it's very important when we come into a different culture, which is dominant and different to ours. It's very important, not necessarily to embrace it, but we need to understand it. There is a difference there, because I've spoken to a lot of my brothers and sisters. We have a conversation, and the people would almost like say, in this country, you need to raise your child based on your culture back home. You need to teach your child your culture. It's very important that they know their roots and follow their roots. But you need to ask yourself a question as well, right? They need to know their culture. Very important that they know their roots and have a sense of identity. But then again, you're raising them up here where the culture is completely different. You're raising them up here probably for them to operate and be successful in this culture. So as much as you're teaching them the culture from back home, you need to also teach them how they need to survive, not just survive, but excel in a culture different to your own. And that's when expanding culture comes into play, in a sense that our culture as a community has to expand. We have to break out of our own little shell, our own little seclusion, if you like. That, oh, this is our African way. This is how we do things. This is us. You know, this is what we do. This is what we do for fun. This is what we do as a community. This is how we do. We have to come out of that and expose our children, especially, into the mainstream culture, so that they have a sense of belonging. They have a sense of commonality. What I find is makes it difficult for Africans to integrate. One of the things that makes it difficult is the fact that we have very little in common with the mainstream culture. Say you're in a group of people, right? And you've got a lot of English people sitting there, and they start talking about something. I'm just trying to say something that is very European, but not so much African. Say they start talking about skiing. Okay, I'll give that as an example. Not that all English people do skiing, but I'm just using that as an example. They start talking about skiing, for instance, or ice skating, for instance, which is more of a European sport, if you like, or sport for countries that are used to the cold and ice and those kind of things. They start talking about that, right? You find yourself sitting there. Probably you grew up in Tanzania. I grew up in Tanzania. The only place I see ice skating is on a movie, on a TV screen or something. And so all of a sudden they start talking about these things, and my mind just shuts down, right? Because why? I can't contribute in that conversation because I haven't got that experience. It is something I've not experienced, right? And the things that I've experienced are probably things that they haven't experienced. So if I start talking about my experiences, they will shut down. Why? Because they haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. So what ends up happening is I cannot integrate because my culture and my experiences are very foreign to theirs. Now, it's not that one culture is superior to the other, no, but it's just that I become a victim. I end up in the fringes of the community simply because I cannot integrate because we don't share experience. Now, if we're not careful as a community, if we isolate ourselves and almost like shut ourselves from the community and what is happening around us, and really exposing our kids in a controlled fashion, obviously, to that, is that we end up limiting their experiences as well. And as they grow up, they find themselves very different to everybody else because they don't share the experiences, and they start feeling like they're different. Not necessarily because of their skin color, but it's because their experiences are different to that of the mainstream culture, if you like. So expanding culture is all about having that in mind and trying and ensuring that you give your children and the next generation all the opportunities to experience life as it can be experienced in this country, so that they have the same experiences as everybody else, and they can easily integrate and easily excel, if you like, in the community that they are brought up in. And I hope that makes sense. So what does that mean? It means, you know, when I've talked about lack of integration and that experiences can improve that. I've talked about reduction in access to opportunities. Again, that comes to experiences. Sometimes we shy away from certain things. Why? Because we have completely different set of experiences when it comes to those things, and therefore the more experiences we put our kids into, we increase opportunities for the realm of possibility of what they can do. Okay, so that's also important. And yeah, let me stop there. I don't want to keep talking too much, but I want to hear what others think. Let's have a conversation for another 10 minutes before we wind up this conversation. Who wants to come in first? So those are just as a quick reminder before is the excellence examples. What was the third one? Excellence examples, effective skills, and expanding culture. What do you guys think? I'll go with Stephen, and then I'll go to Dr. Abby.
Yes, I'm going to be just as brief as I can. And possibly I will recite on well, doctors, well, I can see her name was Phoebe, but sorry, I'm going to call you by your first name. I can't, yeah. Yeah. As you know, when she started, she did ask some very fundamental questions, really, very, very key questions. You know, we were existing in our country. We came from where we came from. Come here. So that's very important, but that's very, very important, you know. Human beings or well, living organisms, Kai, they're somehow bound to the environment that they live in. Like the fish will thrive on water. You cannot put the fish in here on the land. It's gonna die. The animals, wherever it lands, they thrive in the jungle. That's where they are. Right? Now, I do believe that we're all human beings, but our geographical locations, you know, has something to do with the way we live, the way we perceive things, the way we succeed, and all this. Now, when we come from one environment, one entity to another entity, I think there is an importance to kind sit down and reset. Say, I'm now in a new environment, right? How things are done in this place. To be honest, Mama Phoebe did well. She did so well. To be honest, so to speak, she did so well, and that it is what it is. You know, you can't just come in and mix in a different environment and automatically fit in. That won't work. And again, I'm going to recite on what Charles says in starting. You know that you got people who are starting ahead of you. Of course, apart from what we say that Sister June said, the value that we need to have, we as human beings, like that thing that I want to be excellent, I want to excel in everything. That's number one. That you need to have that. No matter what color you are, blue, you are pinky, that got to be there. Of course, the system, we know that the system is been set to work in a certain way, not to favor, but the system is set to work in a certain way. And somehow the system is not very favorable to us. That one we know. Now, for us to really excel and go forward, we really got to kind, number one, from the beginning, from the initial, kind, sit down and think. But what happens is exactly what Sister June said. You just coming in here and you just follow the follower. And that's what we do. You just jump in and follow the follower, whatever direction they go. And this is why you find we're all crowded in some sectors, simply because, Charles come first. When I come here, I tell Stephen, sit down. This is how we do things. I bring somebody else, I say, sit down. This is how. So we are all crowded in the wrong direction. And and I think it's important really to kind now try to teach our kids, pass on the next generation for them to kind, try to correct the direction that, we started. Because all the fact is for us, well, it's a little bit too late. It's a little bit too late. But what we have to really focus on is unto our children. So let me end up there because the time is so far spent, and we'll catch up next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you for that contribution. Dr. Abi.
Let me say 1 minute. We Black people were such individuals, and we just want to be we don't want to support. That's why people found a way to make us slaves, and it's still being done again. We just like not to support each other. How many of us support our hairdressers, women hairdressers? These hairdressers, when they're doing their hair, they don't even have who is selling their hair pieces. They're sitting in other people's, I don't want to mention what group of people sell hair pieces, but they are not Black people selling their hair pieces. You find the women renting the shop from these people to do our hair. Yet our men and women can openly do this too. We don't want to recognize Black people who are in the authority. Me, for instance, when mothers come to my surgery, Black women, you know what they do? When they're going out of the room, say hello to grandma. I said, hey, listen, don't tell your children, I'm grandma too, but say hello, say goodbye to Dr. Abe. I want Black children to know that there's a Black woman, they can also, all my 30 years of being a doctor, I've only sent 2 people in the medical school and they're all girls. because I think the mothers had not been telling the children that is Dr. Abe. They might have been say goodbye to grandma and they're gone out of my room. Two, our community, we must support our community. You people, if you're going to stay in another, by the way, when you come as a very strong, very disciplined Black person in this country, you go in a country where, in a community where there are no Black people, and they like to use you to excel that community because you're so good. A Black person can be leading in that community where there are no Black people. A Black people can be a headmaster in a school. I know there are some very good headmasters or head of department who are Black, but they teach those children so well with the skills and the respect they came with from Africa. They are not even, I said, my God, if my children were still young again, I'll send my children all the way to do to that school, they'll take a train. But we don't support in the community Black people. There is a problem with us. And if we don't address that issue, which is happening back in Africa, we are going to keep talking like this. You know, it really upset me, but now we are here. Let us see what we can do with our children. You people come and talk on all these Zooms. What group have you got to be talking about in? If you talk like that in Zoom, you're so good. But as soon as you go back to your home, you don't meet. You tell me how many of you have met 20 of you together to discuss issues seriously like this, but we like to talk. So for me, I say one thing, Black community, support your hairdressers. Black community, support people who bring food from Africa, like so many African shops. Go and get food from there and support the Black man in his community, in his shop. Support the hairdresser. If you want to wear a wig, buy the wig sold by a Black man or a Black woman who brings it here. If you want to buy dresses, buy the dresses that the Black men. Have you seen an Indian, a Black person selling saris to Indians? Have you? If you go to hairdresser to do your nails, who does your nails? The Chinese, and they're all speaking their languages. And you sit there. Why don't you go to a Black woman's nail shop and do your hair there? Why? Black women have tried to set up shops in the high street. It's failed. So I say, let us support our community. We are now here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abe, for your invaluable contribution. Anybody else wants to come in? Let me do a gallery review and see if there are any hands up. So what do you guys think? What is it that we can do as a community to make a difference? I can see a comment here in the chat section. Let me just read it. It says, we should accept integration to our surroundings as a means to success. Integration means expanding who we are and not necessarily abandoning our roots as we often perceive it. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because so many times we kind of feel like if we embrace or we expand our experiences and our culture, it's almost like we are betraying our roots, but it's not the case. Culture is always evolving, culture is always expanding, and therefore sometimes when you change the environment, like Steve said, you have to look at ways in which you can maximize your potential and your chances of success by expanding your experiences in your culture. That's absolutely spot on. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, Emeka, you have something to say?
It's just backing up what Dr. Phoebe said, and also again and then the chat in the chat what they said about integration. Integration is really important. Integration is a good thing, which is what I'm learning. I wish I was more integrated when I was much younger. But however, it's not. I believe in one. It's not too late to work on yourself as a person. And it's not expanding your knowledge, but not necessarily abandoning your roots. And again, like what she was saying, to pick back what she was saying, one of the things we lack in the Black community is having a good support network. For instance, like I went to university like years back. I never knew about ACA. A lot of the times I do wish I knew ACA back then. Maybe I would have gone far in life. Maybe I'd have gone much further in life. But few people like Mr. Victor Bisong, I met Mr. Bisson, Mr. Victor Bisson, through a friend of his, and Mr. Victor Bisson directed me to ECA. I've been learning a lot here, and again with Mr. Victor Bisson, I've been learning a lot from these people. Although like I said before, I still have the regrets that I wish I knew ECA years ago, but ECA has been around for a while, for a long time. But a friend of mine, but I think a friend of mine, or Mr. Victor, they told me that you cannot reflect back on the past. This is the present now, and make the best of what you have from this connection you have. So having a good support network is really important, especially in the Black community, because we talk about Black Lives Matter a lot. That's why I don't get involved in the protest. If you notice, I write about it. Because the real question is, are we really united as a community? And that's why I respect the Asian community a lot, because they work together as a family. But that's something we lack in the Black community. Because I won't lie, I feel very uncomfortable talking about race, but unfortunately, you can't escape from it. So if you can work together and cooperate together, rather than the whole rivalry and everything, I feel we'll be able to excel as a group. That's just my opinion.
Absolutely, Emeka, absolutely, and this nails it perfectly. The overriding theme of this conversation, that when we're talking about networks and bringing our communities together, it's about us. It's about what we can do. It's very much the same as when what was his name, young Jack Kennedy, when he became president, in his inaugural speech, and he said, ask not what the country will do for you, ask what you will do for your country, that sort of thing. It's the same thing with us. So many times when it comes to the matter of race, unfortunately, and racial equality, we focus so much on the activism. Now, I'm not battering down activism here. I'm not battering down what the Black Lives Matter movement is doing, because just the fact that that is a movement in itself is a network, is an initiative. It is something that Black people came together and did. But so I'm not trying to say that, to belittle that at all. There is a place for that. But unfortunately, the conversation has been unidirectional, has always been in that direction, always been about complaining what others have done to us, and almost like saying, because it is someone else's fault where I am, therefore it is someone else's responsibility to get me out of where I am. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that's the flaw, that's the weakness of the struggle, because it kind of takes that power away from ourselves onto someone else. You want someone else to solve your problems. Now what we're saying here is that we need to take that power back and say, like, right, assume nobody else is going to solve our problem, because the issue of racism has been around for generations. Dr. Abe alluded to the issue of slavery. It started ages ago. So the problem is there, and probably it will outlive us. We will all die, and it will still be there. Okay. Should activism be there? Should we challenge the status quo? Should we challenge the powers that may be? Absolutely. But that is not the only thing we need to do. We also need to look within ourselves and say, right, regardless of what we're facing, what can we do to improve our chances? Okay, what can I do to get myself out of this mess? Not accepting that I have an excuse for failing and therefore it's okay. No, it's not okay. So all these conversations we're raising here today, and many more conversations that might spring up from this, and I hope this is going to stir up a deeper conversation in our communities, is that what can we do to make a difference? Okay, because the Chinese are being faced with racism, the Africans are being faced with racism, the Indians are being faced with racism. Have they all been colonized? They've all been colonized. Have they been faced with difficulties? They have been faced with difficulties. But then why do you still have differences? Some people making it, others not making it, others doing well, others not doing well, while they're all facing the same challenge? The question is, so it shows that there is something that you can do in spite of the challenges that you have. And that is my hope personally, and the hope of Lifetime Success Seminars, that these conversations will steer up the conversation in that direction, that we may start changing as a community. I'll invite one last contribution, and then we'll call it a day until next time. Who wants to conclude for us?
I think I just posted something there, but I just think another thing is also for people who have succeeded, you know, people who have broken the barriers, and they are somewhere where many of us would have thought, oh, it's not possible to get there. Really, to be very intentional in raising other people to succeed, because there is no, you know, sometimes we meet like in fellowships, like in faith groups, fellowships, and you're sitting there and there is somebody who has got like 6 properties, and you're sitting there, you're thinking, how did this person make it? And no one even tries to kind of say, okay, guys, for those who might be interested in this kind of thing, maybe we can, this is what, you know, if you want to get involved in this, you know, to be intentional. There is no point of we are gathered there and then we just have spots of in a few Black people who have succeeded, but there isn't much that is also being done to create a legacy. And I don't know how that can be achieved, but if I know that I have succeeded in one little thing, one big thing, I would really want to see not even just the generations which are following the young ones, but even my peers, because there is a way. I am sure there is a way, but it all comes as everyone has been saying. There has to be unity. There has to be oneness. You know, to have like a focused mind to really know what are we doing this. What is the purpose of it? You know, so there has to be a common ground which we can all meet first, and then take off from there in different areas. You know, I don't find it really appealing if there is only one African person, all of us are just celebrating and that's it. Yes, let's celebrate this individual, but let there be initiatives to raise others because you have taken that step, you have said that it's possible. Okay, let us groom others also so that we start creating a legacy. It's a big task, probably. I don't know if it's a big or small, but I think that's one way of also kind of transforming things for the better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sister Julie. I think that summarizes it really well. We need to, like I said, the point of examples. You know, we need to celebrate our heroes. Let me use that word. Our heroes in all the sectors. You know, as Sister Julie were talking here, I was just wondering here in my head, is that at a community level, do we despise the success of our fellow brothers and sisters, or do we celebrate them? And unfortunately, and I'm basing this basically on normal conversations that we have on a daily basis, we almost tend to despise it. You know, it's almost like we tend to look at the flaws of our heroes rather than the successes of our heroes. And as a result, we don't benefit from them. You know, inspiration comes from celebrating. You know, all heroes have their flaws. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you hear about these great men that have done these things, and because they are celebrated so much, you think these were saints. They were perfect. They're not by any standard, by any definition. They have their flaws. But for the sake of the community, you don't blow the flaws up, because then they're not going to help you as a community. You have to blow up the trumpets when it comes to their successes. You know, leave those flaws out of the equation, because they're not going to inspire anyone. You understand? So it's very important to celebrate these heroes. And I get what Jill is saying, and I think it cuts both ways. There is a responsibility on those who have made it to pull others up, but there is also a responsibility for the community to embrace them. Because if you don't let me go to the example you gave, the person who has 5 properties, right? And I've seen this, and I'm saying this out of my own experience. Someone comes up very passionate about steering his community into success, and he's very successful, say in properties. He says, look, I've done this and that and that, and I've got 5 properties and I've done this. And other people look at him and think, oh, this guy's pompous, this guy's arrogant, this guy thinks he's done it all, you know, and they almost despise this guy's effort, this guy's passion to steer up the community into success. So sometimes this person might do that once, twice. Eventually, he realizes that he's hanging out with the wrong crowd. You understand? So what does he do? He walks away. He starts hanging out with the Indians who celebrate properties and this, that, and the other. And what does that do? The heroes end up in the fringes of the community. And so it's both ways. Yes, the heroes have to come in and try and pull others, but as a community, we also need to celebrate them, almost like creating that room for them to have an influence on us, to have the influence on our children. What Dr. Abi said sounds very, very trivial, but it's so profound. You know, someone calling her grandma. It's like, oh, why don't you call me Dr. Abi? No, someone else might turn around and say, oh, she's arrogant. You know, she just wants to be called a doctor. She likes the titles. But that's not what it's all about. What she's saying is someone needs to look at her and identify with her and say, oh, if she can be a doctor, I can too. You see what I mean? And that is where that is the transition as a community we need to make all together, both those that have made it and those that haven't, is so that as a community we create conducive environment for success, because we've got that structure right. We had that structure back home, okay? Because that's the culture, that's the way we've been brought up. The structure was there, and so we had the stage for us to succeed. We come here, that structure doesn't exist. So all of a sudden we find ourselves everywhere trying to do everything on our own, and it doesn't work. So the first thing, we need to create that structure. We need to create that network in which we can use that as a platform for us to excel to whatever heights that we want to. And the things that we've been talking about here, the issue of excellence, the issue of examples, the issue of expanding culture, the issue of effective skills, all those are like tools to help us navigate through that space and be able to make those achievements. On that note, I think we've had a fantastic discussion, and I really hope this is just the beginning of this conversation, and that we will really try and steer up this conversation in our community and be the source of the change. Someone put that in the comments here before, that we need to raise a generation that will be the source for change. You know, not just doing things for ourselves and just do it for the sake of doing it. So I think it's really important that we become the source of this change in our community, and I hope this conversation is just the beginning of that. On that note, I'd like to invite Stephen Muradani if he has final remarks, and then we will call it today. Stephen?
Charles.
Yes, Cecily.
Yes, before Stephen comes in the spirit of the point of communities supporting each other, I see a very good response there from my friend Bigesi. You know, we despise the very people we could potentially benefit from. And you know, the theme for this month's Black History Month is proud to be. Yeah, and it's really about being the change that we seek. Yeah, our intentions here is to see this forum full of people learning from the very important pointers you've given us. And I really wish we can now go back so that when you call us again, we are bringing in 2 or 3 people in the forum, and that's how we grow and we change people's mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Stephen?
Before we go, you know, I heard Emeka telling his story, and you know, I was concerned about him. Is it possible because Dr. Abe is here, there are, you know, minds here to support him with his problem? Or is it too bad? Emeka was telling us about his work experience. And since we are here to support each other, are we able to discuss it and see, you know, put it on the floor and see what people think, or are you going to see him privately? Because Emeka, he was telling you about somebody, you know, nearly beating him at work and all that. Platform to discuss that, because Dr. Abe is here, there are people here who can advise.
Grace, can I just come in, please? Grace, can I come in?
Yeah.
There's a very nice gentleman called Mr. Adekola. I've sent most of you his telephone number. He wants to promote Black people to get higher education, and you better get his phone to tell all the Black people to have good education so that they can have good, you know, even these people who are working care home, it's soon going to be, you got to have qualification, and the government sponsoring people. So he's trying to tell people too, He wants to teach young people IT. And he's come up to help Black people. How many Black people? You know, there are so many Black people like him in the highest level. If you watch television at night, you see those who watch the stars, who are in charge of inventing things. In the stars, there are two Black people. There's a Black man and a woman. They are now old, but they're the one who do British scientific invention of talk, speech. They come at night normally. You people don't even know, but there's a gentleman who want to help you Black people to get higher qualification, better jobs. He said, Dr. Abe, I want all Black young people now to start retiring at the age of 50. No more work after 50.
Yeah.
I want to give you that telephone number, Grace. Okay?
Yeah, we need a number. Now, Charles, please, Rebecca, and deal with him, you know, if it's privately, because I'm concerned about what he was talking about.
Yeah. I'll take for the case of Rebecca, because it was just a sort of like a conversation.
Right.
I don't think his intention was to bring it in a group for a group discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Certainly not a recorded group discussion. But I think it's something that we can take it up personally and see how we can do that. Also because of time as well. But it's a good point to know, because we're here to support one another.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Abi, for that. For that number, because there are other people here that may not have been in the circles that you shared that number. If you can, I'll try and reach out to you personally to get that number, so that those people that are interested in that, they can contact you and get it from you, and then we can do it that way. Having said that, thank you very much. It's been nice seeing you all. God bless you. Stephen, for final remarks, and then we'll be out of here. Stephen.
I think next time, wear the African attire. Black is famous. Next time, wear something African.
I will do my best.
Right. Let me just take this time to kind of thank you everyone, and especially Dr. Phoebe, really people with experience, great mind, learned. So yeah, we really enjoyed from your experience, and actually this is the joy of us setting up this. We have a platform where we can have because like your experience is priceless. Grace's experience, well, is high mileage. So we really benefit from each other. So I do really appreciate, and I want to thank each and every one of you for setting up the time and really coming together and share with that. You could have said, well, I don't need any whatever, but really you just came in and then shared. And then if we can please share about this platform, so that most of us can come in. And then so more than that, really we just want to say thank you, and I can't thank you enough. But I'm happy that we had this discussion today. It's a very, very important thing, and as you say, if there is anybody who have something that is hurting or whatever it is, then they can seek advice. Because this, I was reading a book, just going to be very quick. I was reading a book. Well, it's a spiritual book, and there was a gentleman who attended a seminar, whatever it was, and they were called for prayer, went in front for prayers. Now, when he went in front for prayers, he was crying a lot. And the preacher man said, "Why are you crying a lot?" And this gentleman said, "I can remember when this gentleman was in South Africa. He said, when I was 12 years boy, he needed to use the toilet, to go and have a wee." So I'm going to be explicit here. And then he tried his best to find a public toilet that says black and gold, because they used to have that whites only and whatever it was. So he went into this one. So when he just started helping himself, a white man came in and then he screamed at the top of his voice, said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm having." He said, "No, you're coming out. You're not a human being. You're not a human being. You're an animal."
Oh, no.
And then since that time, that thing has been eating this young man. And then he was confessing to this pastor, say, "I hate you know, the other color. I
Yeah.
hate them.
Yeah.
And then this was really, really eating his life. From age 12, and now he was an adult. I don't know how old he was, but he had this thing in the mind. Whenever I see a different people of different, he was really having. So it can hurt sometime. So if this is the case, you know, please seek advice from professionals, and they can help in one way or the other. But more than that, thank you very much, and stay blessed and have a good week.
Thank you.